So the topic of today's talk is actually about a vision for a fair publisher, but I want to start a little more concretely. So to introduce myself first, my name is Kevin Logan. I'm a PhD student and research assistant at the Chair of Fluid Systems at TU Darmstadt, and I'm working on two research topics. One is Hesse state-funded research project Emergent City, where I'm working on water infrastructure in digital cities in cases of emergency. And on the other hand, I'm also working in the DFG-funded project, National Research Data Infrastructure for Engineering Sciences, or NFDE for ing for short. Within the scope of this latter project, we are founding a journal which is called ing.grid, Data Management and Engineering Sciences. And I would like in this session to present to you some concepts, ideas we have that we are actively putting into practice with the journal already, but I would also like to get some feedback from all of you, what your ideas are for further developing a scientific publishing in the 21st century. The session will be divided up into roughly 4 parts. I'll briefly present the idea of ing.grid, and then I prepared a small survey, and then I'll try to show how we are addressing certain issues within ing.grid, and then there'll hopefully be some room for discussion. So to start, ing.grid is maybe a bit of a strange name, but as the journal is derived from the NFDE for ing, I think it becomes clear why ing.grid is there. And the next point is that it's a journal that treats the subject of fair data management and engineering sciences. Just in case not everyone is on the same page about fair. Fair is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, which are principles according to which data should be treated or curated to ensure a high formal quality of data. But we don't only want to treat this subject within the journal. The journal itself should also actually try to put these principles into practice. I will try to motivate from a fairly far distance why we need a new journal. So the scientific method, according to Galilei, consists of hypothesis, abstraction, laboratory experiments, verification, and validation. And we think that in the 21st century, we have to extend this. The method has been extended in the past already with automated experiments or experiments in silico with the von Neumann machine, but also Bayesian inferences become more and more important, and we believe the next step here is really data management, so for fair data, for transparency and reproducibility. Where we are with the journal now is that the consortium NFDE for ing was initiated in October 2017, and the proposal was submitted in 2019, and we've now been working on the project for over a year. For the journal, it was launched in September or officially announced in September 2021, and we're now working on constituting the editorial board and plan to have a call for papers in January of next year, and hopefully a first issue in March. The aim of the journal is to further scientific discussion on all subjects related to data management. And it's not only discussion that we want to promote, but also we want to give scientific credit where credit is due, because so far the credit is really only given for publications, and as far as we have found, there are no other journals that really treat the subject of data management. So you can have journals that publish data sets, but the methods for data management don't really play that big a role. With the editorial board, we're really trying to have, it's mainly a national network within Germany so far, but we're already kind of spreading out internationally as well. And the journal is also mainly driven by the communities of NFT for ing, and that is the engineering communities. That's also where our main focus for the addressees of the journal lie. That's the engineering sciences, academic, the engineering sciences in all their diversity, so mechanical, electrical, civil, computational, materials, engineering. And here we're not just focused on academia, but also non-academic research, industry and services should also be considered. But since engineering is really embedded in a wider scope of society, we'll also have to include humanities, economics, and law. And as the main data management infrastructure providers, libraries and computing centers play a role. We've found 7 topics that we think are really pressing. Most important, data literacy, is also widely discussed and presented here at this conference. But there are a few others that also play a role, such as who provides infrastructure for data, how do you govern, how do you find rules for governance of data, business models, including data ethics, also play an important role. And then, of course, just the data sets and data management software, those are the products of basically data management work in everyday scientific practice. So basically, we have a huge we have a huge task, and when addressing such a task, it's not always the best to just look at the successful ones. We can also look at unsuccessful ones, such as the Tower of Babel, and we can look at reasons why it failed. For one thing, that it didn't have a realistic goal, reaching the sky with a tower, and for another, there was no clear common platform of communication. And so we've come up with the idea that basically 100% fair data and 100% fair data management is not reachable. It's more like an asymptotic limit that we're trying to achieve, but we do need a common communication platform. And for us, that is what we want to provide with the journal ing.grid. And now when we look at the building blocks of what we need to kind of build towards the asymptotic limit, we have come up with a few ideas. What building blocks we need to build up the journal from the foundation to really reach that goal of a fair journal. And before I want to go into details here, I've prepared a quick survey, and I'll give you a few minutes to fill it out, and then I can present some ideas of how we're addressing this, and then we can maybe discuss your feedback as well. Okay. I see about half of the participants have responded, but seems to be going to a close. But I think I'll just continue and try to present some ideas that we're putting into practice with ing.grid. So 3 building blocks for the infrastructure are mainly a publishing platform for content management and the editing processes that are built on open source software. We're including a preprint server within the journal itself, and we're also going to implement an open review process. To give you an idea how it looks, so because ing.grid is mainly driven from TU Darmstadt so far, we cooperate closely with the university library here that really promotes open access journals to be founded, and within their program TU Journals. And the library is also an active member of the Open Library of Humanities, charitable organization that promotes open access publishing. And as a measure for this, they have developed the Janeway open source publishing platform, and this is the software that ing.grid runs on, and it's open source. It has other principles that really comply with the principles of ing.grid as well, such as readable code and others. What we're doing with the preprint server is that we're hoping to make results really clearly visible very quickly, and we also have a functionality to be rolled out, which is community comments. So, well, that as you might know from preprint servers, that the scientific community can actually comment on the preprint. Then for the review process, it's actually also interlinked with this preprint server. The referees, it is a single blind peer review, but the referee comments also get published alongside the community comments, and the author's comments or the responses of the author responses to the referee comments too. So this is how we're trying to make the review process really transparent, but also really promote this idea of discussion, an open discussion within the community. Then the second loop is no longer part of the preprint server, where the revised manuscript gets submitted, and then we have an article page for the full publication, but we still provide the link to the preprint and the comments, so that the genesis of an article really becomes transparent. Then a few other building blocks are transparent submissions and linked metadata. Generally, when you think of a submission, you have a manuscript, which is the top triangle here, and supplementary materials such as data and software code. So if you're writing an education concept for data management, for instance, you should also provide course materials such as software code as an example, and example data that can be processed, and then the submission becomes really a lot more wholesome. But we can also turn this triangle and have the data as the central submission, which is maybe known from data journals, where you have a manuscript submitted as a data descriptor, but here not so much focus has lain on software code in the past, which could be used to process the data in the data set, or analyze it further. And if we think about turning the triangle by another 120 degrees, the software could be actually also considered a central submission, so that we have the, for instance, a researcher writes a data management tool, a software code, and could then submit a user manual to the journal and provide example data to be submitted. alongside it. And now, because on the Janeway platform for ing.grid, we actually only host the manuscripts, we need links to be provided to the data repositories and software repositories where the material for the supplementary material actually lies. And for this, it's really important to have a representation of, the provenance of each of the submissions, but also a way of linking manuscripts, data, and software together. And this is where we're cooperating again with the library that is thinking of concepts such as knowledge graphs for submissions that could be used in the back end of the journal. And that's why we also think that metadata can be considered like a fourth entity within the transparent submissions. Another key principle is open access. That's where we're hoping to be listed in the directory of open access journals in the future. And to give basically a summary of the journal so far is that we're really, from the very beginning, trying to be guided by open access standards. One way that we think is really important for development is that it should be self-published. So the library, the infrastructure provider, provides the infrastructure to run the journal, but it should be owned by the editorial board. In that way, we don't really have to deal with commercial publishers. And the idea there is also to kind of try and avoid very high article processing charges that usually come with open access publishing, with commercial open access publishers. And aside from the open access, something that we think is really important for future development, but we can see it really gaining traction all over the publishing community, is also this open review idea, which we do by making the reviews available and attaching them to the publications. And one further idea for us is this concept of transparent publications that really see publication as whole as being complete only if we provide the relevant code and data, and also links to the code and data. With that, actually, I kind of want to make a break here for a bit, and maybe for the next 5 minutes, I would try to open the floor maybe for ideas that members of the audience may have about publishing in the future, feedback for our concepts. We can also possibly look at some of the results of the quick survey. But yeah, then after maybe 5 minutes, I would kind of try to give a conclusion of the session. So yeah, don't be shy. Just oh yeah, and also I should mention, wir können auch auf Deutsch sprechen. Also kein Problem, falls es einfacher ist.
Ich würde nur ergänzen wollen, wer eine Wortmeldung hätte, könnte das hier anmelden und ich kann dann auch die Sprache aufschalten der Teilnehmer. You can ask for speech, permission to speak, and I can open the microphone for you if you write it in the chat.
vielleicht wenn es I see two questions. Whether we've already implemented the review process in Janeway. Actually, not yet. It is being implemented. So the Janeway development team, they have to make some adaptations to the platform software. So far, this idea of community comments was in a preprint software, but not in a journal software. But since they're really a team of eager and active software developers, I'm very confident that it will be done really well and soon. So the website is not yet available, and actually, yeah, we haven't had a first issue yet. But ja, und ob wir den Einsatz von Blockchain-Technologie zur Umsetzung verwenden, tatsächlich eher nicht. Was gängigerweise was wir aus der Bibliothek zurückgeführt bekommen haben, ist, dass da wirklich viel auf Basis von ja, Knowledge Graphs oder RDF-Basis gemacht wird, wenn es jetzt darum geht, die Entitäten zu verknüpfen, also Manuskripte, Daten und Software. Das heißt, man hat XML-Dateien, für die sich die Provenienz mit so gängigen Provenienz-Ontologien wie Prov-O dann abbilden lässt, und dafür benutzt man dann diese Datenformate XML oder ähnliches. Genau. Vielleicht nochmal, um die kurze Umfrage aufzugreifen. 50% der Teilnehmenden haben tatsächlich schon mal einen Datensatz publiziert. Das ist interessant, und aber wirklich nur sehr wenige, 12,5%, ein Softwarepaket. Dann ist etwa geteilte Ansicht, ob man über Datenkompetenz, Data Literacy publizieren würde. Also niemand sagt nein. Also das ist schon mal sehr schön für uns natürlich. Da hoffen wir wirklich dann auch eine Plattform bieten zu können, wo das geschehen kann. Und es gibt anscheinend 2 Journals, die sich über Datenkompetenz oder mit Datenkompetenz beschäftigen. Das ist wirklich auch sehr wertvoll. Vielen Dank für den Hinweis. Schließlich noch genau, was vielleicht so, was wichtig ist in Journals, ist natürlich die Reputation. Das ist klar, dass es sehr hoch gesehen wird. Das bildet natürlich immer Schwierigkeiten für Journals, die sich gerade in der Gründung befinden. Aber die meisten geben auch an, dass ziemlich wichtig eben die Empfehlung von Kolleginnen ist. Genau, wir haben uns tatsächlich dann auch für den Namen des Journals mit Engineering Sciences dazu entschieden, die Disziplin aufzunehmen, um etwa die Flughöhe klar zu machen. Ich sehe, hier ist noch eine weitere Frage. That's a really important question. I think in this case, it's really a question of intrinsic motivation and this aspect of reusability. I think, at least from my own experience, we have, when you generate a data set, of course, you do that with a certain research question in mind. And once you've answered that research question in your own publication, then I guess it is the spirit of kind of open science and open access to share the data so that possibly other people can also try to see whether the data that you can provide can be useful for answering other research questions. But here, it is quite a significant challenge, and I guess also something that has to be addressed regarding maybe accessibility and copyright issues, etc. But I guess where science is really a credit-based system as well, if you use a license that makes the person who reuses the data cite your work, then that only really increases the reputation of a scientist. So that would be an idea how we could incentivize publishing of data. I see that we're drawing to a close of the session, so I'll quickly try to give you an idea of what the journal may look like when the web page goes online, because it is a purely online published journal. This is basically how the design of the journal is going to look, more or less. We have the logo, of course, but also these elements with the building blocks. And when you go from the landing page, you can also, of course, look at the at issues. We can have several titles. The issue title pages will always look more or less like this, and we can have different topics, standards for metadata, special issues on high performance computing. Also thinking about open science versus data economics, with the question of accessibility and monetarization, of course. When we look at individual articles, we can have an article page, and on the right here we can have a download section where we will be able to access the preprint server, the preprint, and the comments. And of course, very highly important is the comment or review box. Since it's an online journal, it's also highly important, of course, that you can read it anywhere, and this is how it might look on a phone. So to try and come to a close, maybe I hope I've tried to make it clear what we believe are important issues that should be addressed in the future for scientific publishing, and that we're trying to put address some of these issues and put into practice some ideas, and with the journal ing.grid. And with that, I would like to come to a close. I hope that you'll keep ing.grid and the journal in mind, and would be really interested to get some feedback as well. And in case you are some of the people who publish data sets or software, and they're not too fussed about the reputation at the beginning of the journal, it would be really great to get some of your work submitted when the journal finally becomes running at the beginning of next year. With that, I'd like to thank you, conclude the session, and wish you a lot of fun at the rest of the University Future Festival.